Hello guys, and welcome to another Red Life Studio episode. Please subscribe and give me a like, and share my videos if you're enjoying them. Also, feel free to leave me a comment below. Now let's begin with today's stories.
YTA for cheating on my wife. My wife and I met in college, UK, I think that's high school in America, and dated for about 2 years before I proposed. Things were smooth for almost a year, before my wife seemed to change. She was constantly rude, nagging at me for anything, making belittling comments. I began to spend more time at work to avoid her constant negativity. She was diagnosed with narcissistic personality disorder and bipolar disorder. Still, I was sure we'd work through it, so I stayed with her. I believed I still loved her. 2 years after her diagnosis, my dad died in a car crash. While I was distraught, I couldn't help but notice that my wife seemed almost glad. She'd never mentioned an issue with my parents, but any time I seemed sad about it, she'd say something like, "It's for the best," or "You should get over it soon." My brother took his loss harder than I did and turned to alcohol. As a favor, I took him in when his landlord turned him out. I work a lot, but my wife owns her own business and often works from home. I, wrongly, assumed that I could leave the two of them alone together, but while I was away, they would have sex. I found this out from a neighbor, who walked in on them when asking for a parcel. I also later found out he had been stealing from us as well. As any sane person would, I kicked him out of my home. I tried to file for a divorce, but my wife went through an awful depressive episode, lasting almost a month. I dropped the ideas about a divorce. For a while, things seemed to go back to how they were when I was 20. Things were going great at work and I was climbing the ranks. We just moved into a new house closer to my work. My wife had begun branching out and now owned 2 or 3 shops in the city. She was on a new medication that made her a much more pleasant person. Our sex life was great. And then we found out she was having a baby. I was ecstatic. I love kids. My wife and I had always wanted a kid, but every time we tried it hadn't worked. Soon enough, our son was born. Over the course of his first couple of months, I began to have doubts that he was really my son. I put this off as first kid worries or whatever and continued with my life. Until one evening, my wife sat me down and told me the kid was my brother's. Her reasons were that she knew I'd always wanted a kid and that our DNA was too close for it to make a difference. Never mind the fact that meant she was sleeping with my brother again. Again, I distanced myself. I tried to file for a divorce again, but my wife returned to her depressive state, so once again, I dropped it. One night after an argument, I left the house with no intention of going anywhere and ended up in a bar. I got talking to a girl and we had a one-night stand. I couldn't help but think of my wife the whole time, and yet a week later I slept with her again. She told me things about herself. She was living with her cousin, she worked 2 jobs to put herself through uni, she felt like she was alone in the world. Our one-night stand became a whole relationship and I realized that I was cheating on my wife. It became a lot easier when I made her my secretary. I don't want to explain many details about our relationship. She was by no means at fault. I didn't tell her I had a wife until a month or so before I gave her the job. I didn't tell her about my son until our first argument. I was spending a lot more time at work, and my wife began getting suspicious. She stopped taking her meds, telling me they clouded her thoughts, and refused to speak with her psychiatrist. Still, she doesn't know about the other woman. Really, I know I am at fault for a lot of this, and a tragic backstory or whatever doesn't let me off. But I really do think I'm in love with the woman I'm cheating with, and I don't know what to do. TLDR, my wife, who suffers from multiple mental illnesses, has put me through numerous hardships and now I'm cheating on her. Comment 1. Ash. Cheating is never okay no matter what circumstance you are in. It looks to me like you don't love each other anymore and she just wants you there for money and support, evident by the fact that she goes into a depressive state every time you try to file for divorce. That being said, it doesn't make it okay for you to go behind her back and cheat on her too. If you love the second woman, then you should follow through with the divorce. Make sure you know what properties are in your name, and if you need to, make sure that you aren't together until you finish going through court with it. I don't think you have gone about this the right way up until now, but you should definitely file for divorce and complete it. Comment 2. ESH, I can't say I understand how you feel, but, as an outsider, you're both assholes, and if you feel like you love this other woman, then go for it. I don't know how old the kid is, but if he's young, you should do it now, before it becomes his childhood, you two arguing. Now for the next story. YTA for telling my dad cheating is what got us here, not my mom. My parents divorced when I was 7 after my mom found out dad had been cheating on her for 5 years with someone she considered to be her friend. The reveal of the affair came during my birthday party, which we celebrated late because dad made up some story about an old friend dying and going to the funeral when he was actually with her for an ultrasound after learning she was pregnant. My mom never got over what they did to her. I think what made it worse is 2 people betrayed her instead of 1, because if our friends are willing to hurt us like this, then we're screwed. My dad married his affair partner. They have 6 children together now. My mom has stayed away from them as much as humanly possible. She told me a long time ago that she loved me, wanted me to be happy and loved and not to be distant from them for her, but that she would never be able to play happy families with my dad and his wife and their kids because some hurts are too deep and painful to move on from. When stay in place was ordered, things between my mom and dad deteriorated after my dad asked if mom would take his other 6 kids into her home, so the siblings could see each other, since both he and his wife were frontline workers and had planned to send them somewhere to limit their exposure. Mom said hell no. She was pissed as hell at dad for asking, while dad was pissed as hell that she didn't force me to go to his in-laws to spend time with my siblings while we weren't legally allowed to meet up with others. Things are the same now. Only my mom suffered less financially through the pandemic. After a while, my dad and his wife left their jobs when it got too much and their financial stability took a huge hit. My dad can't afford to throw a graduation party for me, which is fine. But he and his family are not welcome to the one my mom is hosting. He was bitching about them missing out on celebrating with me because of my mom. I told him it was because of his affair and not my mom. That he was the one who betrayed her over and over again, disrespected her, and then expected her to act like none of that happened so he could act like the good guy. He told me it had been a decade and my mom and I should be over it, and I should not have taken sides. I told him he should have kept the affair from me then instead of letting it come out for me to hear. ETA, but another element of this story is that the affair first started after my mom almost died losing my sibling. The pregnancy went badly wrong and almost took her and did take her chance to have more children. All the while her husband and friend were getting together behind her back. Comment 1. The siblings will 100% be weaponized. This guy is just one of those people who exists as a reminder to the rest of us that, as inconvenient and painful as it can be, having a sense of shame is a good thing, because the alternative is holy shit. But I think some part of him must be distantly aware of how monstrous he's been, because that's why he digs in so hard trying to get OP and their mom to validate the delusion that he isn't. When OP refuses, he'll have to use his other kids for it, including slandering OP to them as someone who's limited contact because they're just a shitty sibling/pawn of their bitter mother. So walking away from all of them is a sad position to be forced into those poor fucking kids, and I really hope OP can have a relationship with them when they're all older and fully appreciate what a psycho their father is, but I don't see a healthy alternative right now. Comment 2. Okay, that really needs to be in the original post as it shows just how awful your dad really is as a person. There is a decent chance your dad doesn't see women as really people but as simply incubators for the production of his children, and so once your mother was unable to have the desired amount of children, he decided well time to look for a new women incubator for more children. What would have happened if the same thing happened to his second wife? Would he have just done the same and found a third woman to have children with? Also, your dad seems to lack any real emotional depth. His wife almost died and they both lost a child, and his first response was to start an affair instead of, say, grieving for his dead child or supporting his wife that almost died. Thank you for tuning in. I hope you enjoyed today's story and found it engaging and thought-provoking. If you have any feedback or suggestions for future episodes, please feel free to leave them in the comments section below. And don't forget to subscribe or follow to stay up to date with our latest content. Until next time, take care and happy exploring.